Okay, no, it's good. Amy actually sent me your resume.
Good, excellent.
So,
I brought this
yeah.
in case that's yep. Excellent.
Yeah. I'm actually interested about your family name. How to pronounce it? Like, Buonfiglio?
It's actually really interesting. So it's an Italian name, so it's pronounced Bonfiglio.
Bonfiglio.
Bonfiglio. The G is silent. It means good son in Italian. So
good son.
Yeah.
Like the
like,
son or
no, like
the
a child, like a good child.
Oh,
Yes.
really? Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
So you speak Italian?
I do not speak Italian.
Oh, okay.
No. My family, we're from Italy. Like our family before we came to the United States.
Oh, so your parents they speak? Or?
My great grandparents were the parents that came over from Italy, and so they would have spoken Italian, but no one still currently living in the family speaks Italian, unfortunately. But
but at least you carry this very Italian name.
Yeah.
Bonfiglio. Remind me again.
Bonfiglio.
Bonfiglio. Okay, so
Yes.
Bonfiglio. Okay, interesting. And I look into your education. So what does it mean by independent studies?
So independent studies is a degree that you get in the American college system. I can't imagine it's that much different. It's just the 4 years and then you come out with your degree. But sometimes it's not really affordable to get a full 4 years at one college. So what students will do sometimes is get the first 2 years of their education at a smaller community college, and that gets you usually that's what you get if you are going into if you're going to be an electrician or someone who works in management or stuff like that for a more technical degree. But you can also use it for what's called an independent studies degree, which is just you're getting all of your general education, your basic educational credits that you can then move on to a 4-year degree with. So that's what I'm doing there. And I just graduated, so that I should update my resume. I just graduated on Friday.
Yeah.
And this fall,
This fall.
I will be heading to Hamline University to start on my bachelor's degree.
Wow, where is it at Hamilton?
Hamline University is over in St. Paul. They actually work with NYLC a fair amount, so it's pretty convenient. And so yeah.
Wow, and do you have to choose specific major or
Yes, I will be. I'm still trying to determine exactly what my major will be, but I will be I know that I really like the social sciences and English and literature, but I also really found out during my education at Dakota County that I really like computer science and information technology, and so I want to see exactly how I can fit those together into one degree, and because they work with students a lot to help them get kind of customized education that's not just whatever the certain degree plan is, and so I'm just waiting on getting that figured out.
So in the Dakota, what's it called? Dakota County Technical College. So do you have to choose a major beforehand before you get in?
Typically, yes.
So you choose you mostly learn computer science.
Yep.
And then, so is that what you are really passionate about in high school?
It was something that was interesting in high school. Because I knew for the independent studies degree, most of what I took were English courses. I took some basic science, some basic statistics, basically anything that I could go to a college and say, hey, I've already done what basically the first 2 years of your degree would be. I want to come in as a junior and complete the third year out of the 4 years and complete my degree there.
Yeah.
But you do need to take a certain amount of credits of technical classes, which would be computer science or business management, or you could take welding courses if you wanted to. And I chose to take computer science courses, and so I got basically the equivalent of a first year of a computer science degree as well. So yeah.
So you don't have to really complete 4 years in Hamilton University. You can just go for maybe...
Correct. I will probably be there for just 2 years.
Just 2 years.
Yes, but I will come out having the full 4-year degree from them, and also only having to have paid for the 2 years, which is very, very nice.
Oh, yeah, true. And do you have to pay for the college, for the Dakota College?
Dakota County, I did. I paid for it with I working at Caribou, as you see in the resume, and working here. That was very fortunately able to get through the college without having to take on any debt, which is very, very nice.
Wow. Yes, true. Like I heard the cost or tuition even as a domestic students, you still have to pay a lot.
Yes, it's unfortunate, but things are turning out pretty positively for me. So
that's cool. So is there any very special or memorable moment since you already graduated? Like looking back to the past 2 years, is there anything that's think like, okay, that's kind of like a aha moment or turning point?
Yes, my very first. I didn't actually come in as a. My first time going to college was in 2015. I went to Providence College in Providence, Rhode Island, all the way across the country, and I was not ready. I was not emotionally healthy enough. I was not really prepared to move so far away. So I came home. I started to get some work experience, start to kind of grow a little bit, and then spring of 2017, I just started taking 2 classes just to get credits, make sure that I could transfer them back to Providence College, and just get myself back into the swing of things. But my teacher for my English class was really, really supportive and really, really interested in kind of my journey. And she started introducing me to the idea that, hey, you can totally just get your first 2 years here and not have to worry about taking on so much debt or so much stress. And I remember specifically one day after class that we just stayed after for like an hour and just talked about, because at the time I was thinking that I really wanted to be a teacher. I really wanted to go into academia. And I still think that is something I'd be interested in. I sort of, we talked a whole lot about what academia what teaching kind of entails, what about it would suit me, what about it is helpful for society, and what about it is kind of specifically teaching in college versus teaching in high school. I really, it kind of reminded me that I really did want to be going to college, and I really did want to be in that environment, because up until then I was thinking, oh my god, do I really want to go to college? Do I just want to get a job? What do I want to do? But it was the moment that reminded me that yes, I really do belong in higher education, and I really do want to I really want to kind of capitalize on the intellectual experiences and skills that I've developed. I really do want to do that. And so I think, funnily enough, Dakota County Technical College, which most people are going to get like a welding degree or a degree in, you can learn how to brew beer, you can learn how to fix cars, but it was for me the start of a journey into higher education and perhaps into service learning. So I think it was a really good experience of how service learning is not something, or learning rather, is not just something relegated to it's not just something that's only for college professors at expensive colleges. It's something you do wherever you're at.
What did she say that, give you this feeling that, higher education is really what I want, and then learning is belonging to everyone? What did she...
I don't remember her words exactly. I've never, but I know that what we talked about at one point. I just sat down with her and interviewed her about what she got into teaching for, and she talked about how one of the thing is you can learn about, because we were specifically discussing of an English degree and what an English degree means. Because it's not just learning how to write, you learn about a whole lot of other stuff. And the thing that she said was, you can kind of learn about whatever you want to learn about through the lens of learning about writing. If you like sociology, if you like society, you can learn about that through an English degree. If you like there's a lot of good writing on science that you can use to learn about science. And so she kind of taught me that it's an education in that sort of field is something that's not just that you don't just there's this common misconception in America that if you're getting a degree in English or sociology or psychology, you're not really going to use it. You're going to get a job somewhere else, or you're going to get a job teaching that thing, which defeats the point. But it really is super, super applicable in a whole lot of fields. And that kind of helped me realize how I it would not at all be a waste to go into education. It would be really, really worth my time and it would be, I think, doing service to what I've spent my whole life, because I've been I've loved school my whole life. I've loved classes, I've loved learning, I've loved being at school, and it's continuing that.
Wow. I guess this teacher must influence a lot of students like you in her own ways, in pursuing education.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, so lucky that you have such a teacher. Yeah. I didn't really have one. Maybe I had. So why you choose NYLC as your internship position? How did it come up?
Yeah, so I was at my mother and I were at an event for a local local political event, and one of the members of the board, Rob Schumer, was there as well. And we got to talking, and he asked me what I wanted to do with my education. I told him, I'm kind of stuck between English stuff and computer science stuff right now. I don't really know where to go forward. And he said, well, let me tell you about service learning. He taught me about service learning. He told me about it rather, and told me about his experiences with it, his experiences as an educator. And he said, there's this organization I work with called NYLC that works in service and advocacy, but right now they're looking for someone to help them with a new website. And I thought, what better way to learn than learn through practice?
Yeah.
And so, because one of the classes I could have been taking this semester was learning about web programming, how you program a website, but this was kind of my experience in that regard. So it seemed like an excellent opportunity. So I met up with Amy. She told me about the organization's mission. She told me about what they needed, and I thought it seemed incredible. And I'm beyond grateful for the opportunity, and I really have enjoyed working with NYLC since, and I hope to work with them as long as they're able to, as long as I'm able to. Yeah.
So during the past a few months, is there anything that you find very meaningful or transformative during this internship? Something
yes, absolutely. Going to the National Service Learning Council conference was kind of the moment, because I had been mostly working on the website. I had been mostly working behind the scenes, getting experience relative to me, getting experience that related to me, but not quite learning about service learning. And so getting to be there and getting to sit for all these conferences and getting to meet the Youth Advisory Council, it kind of put the theory into practice. It put all of what I had been reading about as I kind of put the site together and took the old content and put it into the new one. Of course, I was reading it as I did it, and this was the moment that I learned, okay, here's what that looks like. Here's what it looks like to put a conference at a local school and engage with the actual school district. Here's what it looks like to bring people from Qatar and Taiwan and all of these other places into one place. That's what it looks like. Here's what it looks like to practice service learning in the context of the conference. And getting to attend as a photographer, as someone who could kind of go wherever and be at the conference, but also not necessarily have to constantly engage, being able to reflect and being able to just focus on getting the picture. It was an experience that also helped me kind of learn about, first of all, just learn about what it is like to be at a conference in general, but also what it is like to just it gave me a chance to observe the interactions and how the conference attendees kind of got to know each other and got to talk and reflect on what they had done. It was a really transformative experience. And, not to mention getting to spend so much time with Amy and her other interns in the Youth Advisory Council and start to feel kind of like a proper part of the NYLC group rather than just the technology intern. Not that I ever felt that Amy thought of me as just the intern, but getting to kind of go from entry level to being a part of the organization was, I think, really valuable.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like bringing to a bigger picture instead of like just reading, moving around the website. Yeah. Do you feel any challenges? Is there any challenging parts in this internship?
Yes. The challenging part was learning HTML and CSS, which are the languages that are used to... I don't know how much you know about, are you familiar with computer, web design or anything at all?
A little bit. Yeah. So Java
Yep.
and then
Cool.
C++.
Excellent. Then you know what I'm talking about already. Yeah. Just kind of... I'd had experience with programming languages, but not with these ones in specific, and so I kind of had to familiarize myself with them through the process of just messing around with things and tweaking little bits here and there, and a lot of searching, a lot of relying on my professors and my classmates. But it was a challenge that I really liked overcoming, because when I came out of it, I understood now, okay, here's how you put a web page together. Here's what you do to make things look a certain way. Here is what it looks like on... Here's another thing. Another thing that was super valuable was the chance to kind of work with our database and learn how exactly you organize one, because we are now in the age where data is incredibly valuable and incredibly important to a whole lot of companies. And so learning how do we organize this data? How do we make sure that everything how do we make sure that the data that we have can be put into this new thing? How do we reach out to people to get their new information from them? How do we create engagement with our site? It was a lot of really challenges that I hadn't really faced before, but challenges that are incredibly useful to have had, because now I, as opposed to someone who graduates college with a degree but maybe not experience, I've only got the first 2 years, but I can already tell an employer or anyone else, hey, I've faced a problem like this before. I've worked in a database before. I've created a web page before. So it was a really, really... These were not challenges that ever made me think, oh, why did I sign up? These were all challenges that I liked. Yes.
Yeah. It's kind of like really learning by doing. Yes.
If only there were a name for such a thing.
And you mentioned, I think, on the website, like you are passionate about social justice. Any experience that lead you to such a passion?
Yes. My whole life, my parents raised me to think. They always raised me to think about other people first. I was always, maybe not to the extent that I would forget about myself, but they always taught me to be mindful of other people. My grandfather lived in Revere, Massachusetts, and he was a dentist, but he was known for being so incredibly kind and generous. People would get their teeth fixed in exchange for like a bag of tomatoes or a couple of lobsters or something. He was very much someone who really did not care about the money. He cared about fixing people's teeth. But he also made enough money to send his children to college. He knew when to get serious about it, and in all of my experience growing up alongside him and growing up with my grandma and my parents, that was kind of the foundation for it. And then I moved around a lot when I was a kid, which I guess left me kind of without. I didn't have quite the roots that I wanted, and I felt like, man, there must be other people like me, and there must be a way to help them. And then at St. Thomas Academy, the high school that I went to, it was a school that was there were parts of it that I struggled with at first, because it was a military school, and I struggled a little bit with quite the amount. I had never really been in that experience before, but another aspect of the school that stuck with me was it was a school that was deeply devoted to service. There was a lot of volunteer opportunities. Senior year, we had to complete a lot of service hours. And my service was, I ended up helping people out with on my resume.
Performing arts?
Yes, correct. I was working with adults with developmental disabilities, and kind of got me learning. It got me learning about service in a way, and social justice in a way that was not just, here are these people whom you should feel sorry for. Here are these people whom you can work alongside. Not directing them and treating them as like the puppets to create your scene with, but treating them like adults with their own wants and needs and their own vision for whatever art you're working on. And so it was kind of the moment that social justice and service became for me not just something you feel good about, something that I feel good when I think about, equality. Here is the avenue that you can actually help improve people's lives and work alongside them and help them get what they want. That was kind of altogether. It led me to understanding that I would not feel good if I just went off and got a job and worked for myself. I want to be involved in a way that I know that whatever I'm doing is making a difference and helping the people who need it the most.
Interesting. Several points now. The first is do you think is it common among your friends this care for others instead of on themselves is common? Because I heard individualism is part of the culture in the United States.
Yes and no. It definitely was a part of our parents' culture and a part of the parents' culture. And it's not that I've never thought of like my grandpa, for example. I never thought of him as a selfish person, but he did run a business, and he did make a lot of money and enough money to send his kids to college. I don't think any of my generation thinks that it's wrong to make money or that it's wrong to go your own way, but we're also starting to realize the ways that we have kind of grown apart from one another and grown apart from the world around us. Even just the experience of so many millennials, that's so many of our generation now have to drive so long to work. That means that you're spending so much time in your car away from other people, most likely. And we're looking for ways to reconnect with one another and looking for ways to reconnect with the society around us. And that's, I think, yes, it is true that America is a very individualist country. I'm not going to say that it isn't. But I am going to say that there is a strong, among big parts of my generation and certainly parts of the generations before us, that the realization that that it is not enough to simply fend for yourself. That does more. You might come out of it with a nice paycheck, but what does that... And money can do a lot. We are a country that is where money is a very necessary thing to have. But it's only going to get you so far, and it isn't really going to solve the problems that we think it's not really going to solve the problems that we have, I think.
I also talked to some of the young. I feel like at the high school age, it starts to grow this bigger heart for the world, and this is really something that I find in China, but not like really. Like students are very focused on their schools and it's like their studies, their scores. They even don't really care about their classmates, let alone to care about the society around them. So, yeah. So how to grow this passion for something that is bigger than you, or this awareness?
How do you grow it? It's tough because I don't know if it was necessarily a process on my part. It was more the environment that I was in. But it is, I think, to grow it in yourself requires a great deal of reflection, a great deal of thought about yourself, and certainly a great deal of service towards others. And what I think really creates the drive to grow is what situation is the situation around you, and I think it's up to us to build these situations and build systems to build to integrate service into education, or to integrate it into society, and to find ways to kind of let me choose my words for 1 second. I personally grew myself by just finding ways to get involved with the world around me, even when I wasn't necessarily feeling, even if at the time I was just thinking, I'll go to this event because I don't have anything better to do, because I wanted to look good on my college applications or whatever. Even going there, getting there, realizing here's what we're doing, here's the effect that we're having, and then the event of looking at it afterwards and saying, yeah, I did a really good thing. I feel great about that, and I want to do more of it. I think just getting yourself involved in your community by whatever means you're available. And then to pass that on to other people by not forgetting to create those opportunities for those who are coming in now. I had a lot of service opportunities, and I would be very saddened to learn that like my upcoming, like back at the high school that I'm at right now, if I found out that they no longer had a service requirement or were simply unable to because not enough people were creating the opportunities, I would feel very disheartened. And I would like to see, once my generation, because most of us are graduating now. I'm 2 years behind because of my situation, but most of us are graduating now. And I would like to see a lot of us focusing on providing those opportunities for those who come next,
Yeah, not just only to have it within yourself, but also pass it around.
Correct.
And tell me something about this Interact Center for the Visual and Performing Arts, because I'm also very interested in art, and what did you do in that center, and
Yeah. So it was it was a place where there was myself, a couple other volunteers from the school, and then a small team of staff. And we would, in conjunction with this group of people with developmental disabilities, of varying types, varying needs, varying plans to go with them, we would help them create art. We did not help them very much with, for example, like they would do proper like theater performances. We weren't necessarily helping them with those because they were kind of arranging those themselves with under the supervision of the supervisors. But it was we would help address their whatever needs they have in terms of dietary needs, or if they have certain needs. There were certain people who were blind, and they wouldn't necessarily need any help. You know, they knew how to get around, but it was a matter of making sure that that the environment was clear, or for people who had sensory issues, for whom like loud noises were an issue, it would be on us to kind of keep the temperature or keep the volume of the room, kind of in control. But it also was not simply, we were not their caretakers. These were all people who, by and large, could take care of themselves with varying degrees of, needs from us. But at no point did we ever have to go, oh man, this stinks, all this stuff that we got to do, because it was more just facilitating than it was anything coddling or patronizing. It was a very cooperative environment to be in. And together we would have all sorts of little exercises that we like theater exercises. Like, okay, here's a rack of costumes. You need to write a scene in the next 20 minutes that needs to use 3 different costumes and features everyone in your group. Go. Or we would need to, we would do a lot of improvised comedy exercises. There were ones where, like there was, I think we did one that was called like forward and reverse, which was, you would act out a scene with your partner. You would just kind of improvise a scene based off of a prompt. But at any point, someone in the audience could go reverse, and you would have to say your lines. You'd have to say the lines in reverse order. So if you said, "Hi, how are you?" "I'm fine," and someone shouts reverse, "I'm fine." "Hi, how are you?" And if you could keep them going back from the beginning of the scene, so they would then have to pretend to do whatever they were doing before it, and then someone shout forward, and then you would go back into it and then go back into the scene. And it was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of chaos, and it was so, as someone who has always been involved in theater since like the beginning of high school, it was a lot of fun for me, and a lot of fun and a proof that no skill is going to go amiss in your community. The world needs actors, the world needs artists. Just because we don't necessarily value them the way we should, doesn't mean that the world still doesn't need actors and artists and people who will devote their time to engaging with people with disabilities who otherwise may just not have anything to do with their time. That's one thing a lot of people with disabilities don't get is, or people without disabilities don't understand is, sometimes people with disabilities, if they're not, they get treated like their kids, and they get like, okay, here's your toy, go play with it. Okay, here's your TV, go watch it. But they're still human beings who want to engage with the world around them and want to engage with each other. We were helping create an environment for them, and it was really worthwhile.
Interesting. Well, so most of all the participants are kind of disabled, or in a way.
I always struggle with remembering what the exact terminology to use would be, but they were all generally people who had some form of developmental disabilities, yes. So, blindness, or they were hard of hearing, or they may have had Down syndrome, just a variety of kind of non-typical Yes.
Yeah, got you. And you are also interested in writing.
Yes.
Yeah, what kind of writing? Is that fiction?
I have written a lot of I started writing mostly for assignments in high school, but I found quickly that it was something I really enjoyed, and so I would write a little bit of poetry here and there. I would write short stories. I would write a whole lot of. I wrote a lot of fan fiction of just stories taking like a pre-existing work and and just kind of running with those characters and learning how to write in certain voices and stuff. I wrote a lot that was kind of the main avenue for writing. I also did a lot. I was also the go-to person for editing in my classes. Everyone knew, or I very much liked to edit other people's work and help them kind of develop their stories and develop their writing. I think I liked to give help just as much as I liked to write my own stuff. And that kind of progressed to when I started taking computer science classes. I really like writing the programs. I'm not a person who goes crazy over gear. I don't go crazy over new like the specifics of what is a cable, what do certain cables do, what do certain machines do. I like the process of creating this program to do a certain thing, watching it go, finding where it went wrong. It's kind of identical to the process of writing a paper and editing it. Because if your paper doesn't say if your paper doesn't say what you want it to say, you go back and edit it. It's different because people react differently than computers. They misunderstand you very easily, but learning how to write an essay that is as understandable as possible helps me write code that is efficient as possible and understandable by other people. I always remembered to put comments in my code to say, here's what this little pair of lines does. Here's what this part of the code does. Okay, now we're going into a loop that's going to repeat this many times, and it's going to repeat that many times because of this. Also, and all in order to develop kind of a succinct, easy to run, easy to understand piece of code. And that meshed really, really nicely with my love of writing. And I find a lot of excuses to write. I play in a game called Dungeons and Dragons, which is it's like a fantasy game about wizards and elves and all that kind of stuff. And at the beginning, we play every week, and I always write a little recap of what happened the last week. And so, that's always a fun kind of little fiction writing experience and learning. It also helps, I think, in terms of just as much as like taking notes during a meeting or taking notes during anything else. It helps you kind of learn how to think back on the events that just happened and put them all into context. Put them all into into something that's easy for someone else to understand. And so I think that's why I like writing, is because I like writing things for people to use and understand, I feel like. And so that's,
interesting. I never thought, I never learned how to, I learned a little bit of programming, but I forgot most of it. But I never thought, I love writing a lot. I never thought writing like an essay or like an article is similar like programming, like a program. Yeah, interesting. Maybe I should start programming.
Maybe.
All right. Now I have some what's your favorite writer, by the way?
My favorite writer? Oh my gosh.
What author? Or your favorite book?
Man, that is. I've never been a person who's picked favorites very easily. I know that I really liked Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. I liked what else have I read recently that I liked? I read out loud. I'm taking care of my sister's birds right now, and they don't like to talk to me, but I like to read to them just so they have some form of interaction. And I've been reading The Lord of the Rings to them, and I love that. Reading about it and reading kind of where what we now think of as like cliches or that all originated with Lord of the Rings. When Lord of the Rings came out, that wasn't cliche. Elves doing this was not cliche. It was just, that was what he created. And so kind of reading it was a really good opportunity. Has been so much fun. I like, I read, what else have I read recently? I can't think of any other particular names, but I love fantasy. I love science fiction. I love, and I also love historical fiction.
My favorite is nonfiction.
Okay.
So I think I can learn a lot from you. Like you can send me some books.
Of course.
Yeah. I think I have other questions. So social justice we just talked about, that has a lot of like different like areas of injustice that you want to tackle. So do you have some specific interest?
Yes. I think my experiences have led me to seeking one of my, I think economic justice is where my interest lies. Not in a vacuum. I think that specifically because it affects so many other parts of society. Like I said, it's almost more the environment you grow up in than whatever you personally do sometimes. And so economic injustice is something that I feel very strongly about. I feel very strongly that certain parts of this country they have very little in the way of social services. They have very little in the way of financial stability. They have very little way to build a community or build their own resources or anything that helps us move forward as a society. I worry very greatly also about how we grow and the degree to which every year we seem to want more and more. We want to produce more, we want to consume more, but we don't consider what the plan down the line is, and we don't consider who is being harmed by this. We don't consider who is going to. We don't consider that, if our plan is to, if our plan is to, we want to sell more, but everyone, their wages, their salaries, their insurance has not increased, they can't buy anymore. So we're just making more and then throwing it all out, you might as well just not have made the more stuff in the first place. You may well have invested that somewhere else. And so I think economic justice is kind of the keystone that allows other forms of injustice to exist. Gender injustice exists when men and women are paid less amounts. It's an economic issue that happens because of gender, or people of certain ethnic or racial backgrounds get paid less or have fewer job prospects. It is deeply ingrained in issues of race and gender, but it's happening through an economic avenue, which is obviously you're not going to fix misogyny or anything by fixing the economy. People will still have their opinions, but if they don't have the power to pay a woman less than a man, then at the very least we've solved. At the very least, women are going to now be on equal economic footing, which is a very good. I think is a very important basis to create an important foundation is the word I'm looking for. An important foundation to create as we address societal opinions and issues.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like economic, without money, like how can you talk about other things? And then it's kind of interrelated to each other. Like maybe in the next 2 years, you can pick up some like economic courses or public policy. That
that's like I said, you can learn about a whole lot of things. I do plan on getting an English degree, but there's so many classes now that are an English degree program, but it's a class about reading, writing about like public policy, or reading or writing that is of like writing that's in relation to like current topics or stuff. It's not just reading what Shakespeare wrote, or reading what Chaucer wrote, or reading what all of these what old or what previous writers have wrote. It's a very involved, a very, very. I do want to get an education that is rooted in the now.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like what we have like in English literature is more like the classical, those classes. Yeah. All right, I have some like quick questions.
Yep.
It's like quick and very quick one. If you don't have to sleep, what would you do with the extra time?
If I didn't have to sleep, what would I do with the extra time? If I didn't have to sleep, I would probably do a lot more creative writing. I would probably... I like to find outlets for my creativity in ways that are more than just... I play a lot of video games. I play a lot of games. I read, but I think creating is very important, and I would probably devote a lot more time to writing. A lot of people who play Dungeons and Dragons or write fantasy novels, they'll do writing that's just writing about the world of that their book takes place in. What is the continent? What is the political environment? What are the gods of the setting? What are the famous whatever? And so, I would probably devote more time to that, I think. Obviously, which would then allow me to, devote more time elsewhere to doing, to serving and to developing myself in that regard. But if we're talking purely about, if I just wanted to do what I wanted to do, I think that's what I would be.
And it's kind of related to the next question. What is the most creative thing that you have done so far?
Yeah, I would definitely put like playing Dungeons and Dragons in that, because it is you and a couple other friends. You sit down, you're playing a character. You there's one person who basically sets up the world around you. He or she or they or whatever. They're the one who controls the monsters you're battling, or the puzzles that you're solving, or the characters that you're negotiating with, and you and your friends are all kind of, for the moment, pretending to be these characters. And it is basically a big improvised, like, it's almost childlike in a way, because you get to kind of just play pretend, but it's also a game with a whole lot of rules and a whole lot of interesting abilities, and it is very much like a game like any other, a game of chess, a game of what have you. But it's also this intense creative exercise and a team building exercise, and a way to kind of really just forget about in the moment, you kind of present your authentic self when you're pretending to be a character. I think when you are, because every character you make will have a little bit of yourself in it, and that even if you're pretending to be like a massive warrior or a brainiac wizard who wants to build a tower and do experiments, you're still putting yourself into that in a way that other people are going to pick up on. And I think it is both the most creative thing I do and probably one of the most useful as like learning about other people, building a relationship with other people.
Yeah, like a friend of mine who is like a psychologist, he wrote an article about how, like the title is how computer games can help like team building or like social skills building. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't play computer games that much because I worry that I can become very addicted to it.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So the next question, you always keep the next question. What are you addicted to?
Yeah, what am I addicted to? What am I addicted to? I think I would say...
It doesn't have to be like a thing.
Of course.
It can be like emotion or it can be anything.
I think I'll split it into two. One thing that I think is good to be addicted to is the feeling of making others happy. And you can take it too far. You can become someone who kind of becomes a little too eager to forget about yourself. You can become someone who's a little too submissive. You can become someone who is who forgoes their own needs. But I think it is important to never lose your feeling of altruism and to always get satisfaction out of helping others. You know, my job is I work at Caribou I work here, but I also work at Caribou Coffee, and I always like when I can remember someone's order, or if they have a particularly hard to pronounce name, but I can remember it and make their day that much easier. Because for that moment, they don't have to think about the fact that they have a hard name. Their barista remembered their name, and so that is something that I really like. I really like to do. Something that I am quote unquote addicted to that maybe I need to work on moving forward from is probably stress. I think I thrive under pressure. I work well with a deadline. I work well with a team. I work well with expectations set of me. But that is different from, you know, the feeling of stress that I get when I sit down at my laptop and I don't have a plan. I don't have my tasks written down. I don't know what my tasks for the day will be. I don't know where I'm going. I'm just staring at my laptop screen and stressed out of my mind and trying to plan it out all in my head. And I think on some level, maybe because of like the individualistic culture I mentioned earlier, I'm hesitant to ask for help. I'm hesitant to make it better. I am in that moment absorbed in the feeling of stress and perhaps in some way addicted to that feeling. And it's important to overcome that. It's important to make notes. It's important to make lists and to realize sometimes that, hey, does this work need to get done right now? Or is this work that I can put off until tomorrow or later this week? Or even, can I just stand up for 10 minutes and go pour myself a glass of or a cup of coffee and just breathe for a few minutes and then come back to it? Sometimes even that is enough to break me out of that. So that
Yeah, you already have strategies, so you don't have to really worry about getting addicted to it. Cool. Is there something that your friends would consider so you?
Something that my friends would consider so...
You know, when they talk about something like, oh, that's so Christian.
Yes, my friends, they always think of me when... I know that my friends they know that I like to kind of stand apart. I like to, you know, I like to do my nails, or I like to wear clothing that's maybe a little dressy for a situation. They know that I really like to be creative in the way that I dress. They know that they think about me when that sort of thing. Like sometimes my friends will just send me like, I'm not wearing one now, but I really like shirts with floral patterns, and so they'll just send one to me like, hey, this is so you. And I'll be like, oh my god, it is so me. Or floral, like flowers. Or they'll see like a music video. I listen to a lot of music that's a little loud, or a little off the beaten path, or a little bit a little, just a little bit quirky, and they'll send me a song, and I'll be like, oh, you're right, that is so me. They like, I think they also know when they see, they'll also send me articles. I just as much as I like writing fiction, I like to read fiction, and I also like to read about fiction. Like, there's been so many articles written about this show Game of Thrones that's been on television lately, and how this latest season has, according to so many viewers, just gone off the rails. No one likes it. And reading about, you know, the process of that, reading about the behind the scenes stuff, about the tricks about the writing strategies that they used to use, they don't use now, stuff like that. That is analysis. People will send me those articles and say, "Hey, you'd love this." So I think, kind of to boil it down, would be, I like they would probably think about the way I kind of present myself, the way I kind of the kind of art that I like, and my love of just learning about the behind the scenes stuff. I think that's kind of it.
Yeah. Next time when I shop around, I see floral like t-shirt, I'll remind you.
Excellent.
Yeah. Is there something that, you know, many people that they're very obsessed with, but you just don't really get the point of?
I think that it's different things for me, and I think it's because there's a part of me that wants to be a cynic, but there's another part of me that knows that I should be, you know, there's no shame in liking things. There's no shame in being interested in things. But for example, with Game of Thrones, like I mentioned earlier, it's become this massive cultural phenomenon and this massive industry, and this whole time I've been thinking, it seems a little too. It seems like it thinks a little too highly of itself. It seems like it's a little too grim and constantly dark and bloody and like it's doing it just for show, not for any artistic reason, but like it's doing it just for show, just to show another person dying, or to show another person being abused in one way or another. It didn't quite interest me. But on the other hand, then, for hearing people who do like it and saying, well, if you read the books that it's based off of, in the books, everything is very well handled. Like, they make it clear that they portray like a battle or a betrayal, but it's never seen as anything but like, this is a grim story of medieval life, and like a portrayal of it, and it's not trying to glorify it. And so I think that it would be that as far as entertainment goes. But on another level, I think on a more societal level, maybe, I never really got because I went to a school that had a lot of people from fairly wealthy families, and a lot of them talked about wealth and talked about buying houses and buying boats, wanting to buy this, wanting to buy that. I don't think I've ever, no part of, I guess, acquiring material goods has ever really stuck with me. Not that I don't like nice things. I love nice things. I love having a nice place to live in. I love all of these things, but I love them for what they do. I love them for the purpose they serve in my life. I could never, there's no part of me that has ever thought, you know, I won't be happy until I'm making this amount of money. That's not to suggest that I don't live in a fantasy world. I know money's important. I know I want to save. I know I want to maybe have kids or buy a house one day. But at the same time, the kind of endless consumption, endless purchasing of new things, that's never brought me any kind of joy.
That's such a nice asset to have. Yeah. If you if you're going to be famous, which I think you definitely are, what are you want to be famous for?
I would like to be famous for, if I were famous, I don't know, let's say I become a writer and I get famous for my art in one way or another, or I start doing theater and I get famous for art in one way or another. I'd like to be known as famous for being an artist who is both very well versed in like theory. You know, I think it's important to learn theory, it's important to learn about the classics, but someone who's also devoted to creating very new art and creating art that I would want to be known as an artist who kind of works with artists who aren't typically given the spotlight. I would not want to use my fame. I wouldn't want to be known as he's helping these poor artists who wouldn't be seen otherwise. No. I want to be seen as someone working alongside artists, someone who uplifts other artists and lets them share the spotlight and invites them in. Because so many artists will pay lip service to equality or social justice or whatever, but when it comes down to it, they're just trying to cash a check, which everyone is, but they don't really take it any further than that. And if I was famous for perhaps like working for my work in another field, like service learning or education or computer science, I think I'd like to be known as someone with an understanding of, in the same way, more than just the basic knowledge. Because a lot of people will get a computer science degree, but all they will know is how a computer works. They won't understand how society works. They won't understand what they risk when they write a program. There's a law that I like called Conway's Law, which is that when you write a program, it's going to reflect in one way or another the company, the society of the company that made it. If you have a company that communicates really well with one another, your program is going to communicate really well with other programs. It's going to be very easy to work with. But if you're not communicating, if everyone's at their own little cubicle and their own little thing, you're going to run into so many more issues. And so, in the same way, if we follow our trend of individualism to the very, very end, you get a lot of programs, but they may not work well together. And why have all these different programs when you can have a smaller number that work better together? And so I would like to be remembered or I would like to be famous for being someone who prizes communication and understanding and work and an understanding of the society just as much as my field itself.
All right. Is that to broaden up people's understanding about fields, combining all the like social and then society factors into that?
Yes. I don't think you can be a good anything really without an understanding of more than just that thing. There are a lot of people who are there are a lot of people who are brilliant with computers who can do things that I could never even dream of. There are people who in my classes who are already creating servers and databases and could make their own, like they could modify video games and they could do all this stuff. And I would like to see how much further they could go with an understanding with a more developed understanding of society, with an understanding of interaction, with an understanding of social justice. I think that can only improve an already good programmer or an already good business person. So yeah.
Good. Yeah, like something bigger than they already have. What personality trait do you value the most?
Empathy. I think you have to be able to see things from other points of view, and you have to be able to move past the surface level reactions to what someone says, and get to the basis of it. If you look at people who have been done an injustice, and you assume, and perhaps they use rough language, or perhaps they speak in a way that is disrespectful. But if you can hear past that and understand what's at the basis, what they aren't getting that they want, if they aren't getting jobs, if they aren't getting equal view in the eyes of the law, whatever they aren't getting, they can get that with... You need to be able to hear that and understand that, because people will tell you a lot about themselves and what they want without actually saying, here's who I am and what I want. Yeah. And so empathy is incredibly valuable for getting to that, for solving people's problems, and also being in a relationship with another person, like a romantic relationship or a friendship relationship or a business relationship. If you aren't capable of kind of reading between the lines and understanding what people want, or conversely, when they come to you and tell you something very specifically, here's why I feel what I feel, listening to them and not telling yourself your own story is incredibly valuable. So I think empathy, above all, is the personality trait that I value the most.
And also I think, like, I completely agree. And also I think, like, if you're like a good writer, naturally you will develop such a like a sensation or feeling towards like empathy and then understanding others, because you are so dipped into the character you are writing. You try to get out their emotions, and when you're talking with others.
Exactly.
And the last but not least is, what is the biggest accomplishment that you feel about yourself so far?
My biggest accomplishment, I would say my biggest accomplishment is getting my associate's degree right now, because it is kind of the sum total of my journey so far. It is it's not the end of my academic degree, but it is right now. It was what I have wanted for so long.
In the Hamill.
Or
the
Dakota County.
Uh-huh.
Because I went off to college because I did want to go to college, and when I came home, it wasn't because I didn't know it was because I came home to get better, to go back to college, to attend to my mental health, to start getting work experience, to start taking those 2 little classes just to get back on my feet. That was what it was all in service of. And the degree, my degree will arrive in the mail in a couple of weeks, and that is, the degree itself is it's meaningful, but it's not as meaningful as everything I've been through to get there. It is kind of it is kind of the sign of, yup, I'm back. I'm getting what I want. I am moving forward in my life. That right now, I think, is my proudest achievement.
Yeah. And congratulations again
Thank
for
you.
having that. Yes. Oh, that's actually the end of the interview.
All right. Excellent.
Do you have any other questions? Like about the interview, about me, or about other questions?
Of course. Yes. I'd like to know more about, I guess, what your... Amy's told me a little bit about you and what you do, but I guess what is your kind of what do you do?
I actually have a brochure about the organization that I'm doing. I can show it to you.
Sure. Okay. Cool.
Okay. Thank you so much.